Hi, my name is Brett McEachran. This is my video for my final Capstone presentation. So this is going to be the component covering the admin site. So on the admin site, this is the login form. Basically what this means is this is the form that's utilized for logging into and out of the components. It's mainly there to get information about the employees for their created by and updated by statuses. So as applications are updated, that's properly tracked and made aware of, so that way it's good and properly tracked. So this is the request screen. Basically, when the client submits an appointment, it'll come to this screen first. The idea of the screen is to be like a staging area for appointments. They're not technically appointments yet because they're still technically requests, even though they are in the appointments table in the database, but they are marked as pending. So when they open this up, the goal is that the users will then update information. They'll possibly have to call the users, verify an address, check if the address is correct via Google Maps or just talking to them, possibly adding in extra information. Some other details is modifying the call information, such as basically updating the call information to include a better phone number. Finally, they may have to update the cost information to be things like if, say, it's a charity, maybe not having charging them, or if, say, they need to include an extra amount for airfare and hotel fare. This would all be where they do it in this table. This is the appointment view. A lot of that editing will be done here. It's made to be a stepper, so it's easier to see because it's only going to have the users focus on one form at a time. This view is used for basically the request table on the client side and every place where you would click a row to get an appointment. This because it was just easier to make them all look the same. The only major differences are going to be in these buttons. They'll all have these different mark as something button because these are just basically the updating status buttons, but they'll also have a update appointment, and then most places will have a cancel and deny. That's mainly because at any point on the admin side, they want to be able to cancel and deny appointments, as it's kind of important to be able to track whether they denied it or the user canceled it, because they may want to deny somebody who frequently cancels and takes up another person's slot. This is the appointment screen. This is after the request when it's been approved. Unfortunately, I without test data didn't have anything. The way this works is it's using Angular Material expansion panels to hide the table, so that way you can close and open ones as you need. Um, as you click on the rows, it'll bring up a similar form to last time, except with a different update status message. Generally, you're updating stuff in here after you go to like update the actual cost amount or the actual cassette amount in order to help the information be as good as possible, because obviously before you return, it's just going to be estimates of what they thought for how long you'd be there or for how many cassettes you would do, versus after the step you actually would have, we left at 4 p.m. instead of 3 p.m. or we did 200 cassettes instead of 150, which can be useful in making sure you can track what the cost should be, and also maybe even eventually doing some stats on how close do certain people get to approximating how long or how many cassettes it will need to be done. Okay, so this is the finished appointment screens. This is kind of like the history screen of what appointments are done. Now, each status is kind of represented here as a separate item or thing. So pending billing means they're finished, but you still have to send a billing for them. So generally, these will be appointments that employees have just gone back from, updated their data, and marked as done. Awaiting payment is basically that after pending billing, some invoice or some payment mechanism has been used to send requesting payment from the separate company. Each one of these rows has a table that you could open and have different ways of updating and managing it. Paid is basically another staging table to mark that, oh, they did pay, and then after this, it would go into archived. Now, if after awaiting payment they refused, it would go into payment refused. This is mainly a way to mark if you run into companies that are refusing to pay you. Now, payment refused does have a way to get it into archive, whether you max it as they did pay you or you just flat out couldn't get any money of them. Generally, this purpose is so you can kind of determine, say, a company refuses to pay once, but then they did pay, maybe you don't deny them. However, if you've never received money from them, then you always deny them. It's generally that kind of statistic tracker to kind of, they wanted it there to make sure there was no like case of we constantly approve a company that never pays us. So this is the stat screen. This is using mat tabs and the mat card modules again. So it shows it shows how many appointments are currently in the status in the 30, 60, 90 year and all-time windows. The way this works is I have a type or M many to one relationship off of status onto appointments, and I'm showing the length of the array that generates. Now, all time, since it doesn't have any time associated with it, will actually show if there's 0 in that value. However, the others, since there's a time comparison going on, will actually not show that card, which is fine. It just means there's none there. All time, it's just basically how the where clause conditions in type ORM. If you do it, it doesn't return any values instead of just returning a 0 string array or 0 length array. Okay, so this is the admin form. Basically, this mat card is made so each of the buttons will open up a dialog with so these first 5 are just simple input boxes because you just need to enter in varchars, or they're just small varchar values that you're updating. And then these two have to use text areas because they each are storing like varchar 50 and varchar 255. So as such, since these are such bigger values, they need to use a text area so that way the typing in is nicer. Because if you just use the regular mat form field with a mat input box, it will store the data that way, but it will go off the side so you can't see it. Versus this, you can at least see it and scroll to find it. So it's better that way. So as such in here, currently you can only add and then activate or deactivate. There's no delete. This is because the stakeholder didn't see them deleting often. What they'd rather do is have the ability to deactivate stuff. And what that will do is make it so they can't be selected or they can't do it. And a good example of that is right now states. For test data, they're all active, but he said like maybe when we put in all 50 states, we only activate Nevada because they only operate in Las Vegas and Reno. However, as they try to expand into say California, Arizona, they just activate them. They don't have to go in and add. They don't have to go in and try to remove. It's just they're already sitting there just waiting to be activated, and that's a lot easier than trying to end up adding them and possibly having issues that way. So as such, that's why the active flag is in every table as a consistency thing, and so it doesn't get moved. The reason there's more space is just so as more buttons are needed for different admin menus, they can be added, and it's not like we have to reorganize how the form is laid out. So now this is the client site. So this is, besides this page, the other basic landing page is just a 404 message error site in case somebody tries to navigate to something that they bookmarked that was incorrect. And now this is the About Us page. Basically, it just holds a simple mission statement, says what they're about, says a few rules, says what they can and can't do. It's just a general About Us page to clarify on what they need and to do and can't do. This is the appointment request form. So this is the appointment request form. Basically what this is meant to do is this will be where the users can put in the appointment data. The calculate cost button will calculate it and become available after they've entered in everything that's needed for cost. The submit request will become available after cost is calculated and everything else is entered. Generally, this form is mainly to submit appointment request. There's no modification the client can do. This is basically to prevent a client from pulling up a form and then requesting that they want to do this, and also to cancel an appointment they need to call the company directly. This is again to prevent cases where like an appointment may get canceled like an hour before, and then they, instead of getting somebody to fill it, they instead have to tell the employee they don't have work on that day. So it's just easier to force people to have to call and be kind of ready with changes to their schedule. This is the contacts page. Basically, it's a page to show the contacts at the company, so that way, if there's an issue with the appointments request, if the page isn't loading, or if something's going wrong, or if somebody's running late, or they need to request a second day, they have the data, they have the place, they can find what they need, they're able to do it. This uses a view and the table and the contacts table from the database just to help the joins be easier. The view already does the join, so you're able to do it, and the table just stores them off of foreign keys to help with normalization. This is the question and answers. This first bit up here is a mat card. It lets you search the tables. It does a fuzzy search over the question and answer text where it puts a percent sign on the front and end. This is just so you're able to look for stuff without having to worry about, oh, is it at the front of the string? Is it in the middle of the string? The reset button is just obviously to make it so it can clear easier. Now, the table has pagination, so it's able to store. So if eventually there's a bunch of question and answers, it doesn't just make this component a giant scrolling mess. And you can also sort by doing the up down on the question and answers. Finally, this is the services page. This uses a Mac grid list. Basically, the services will be tissues, techniques, or other things the company does. Now, these squares, when you click them, will open up a dialog so you can see what's inside them, and this is generally going to be a description of the service. For instance, Mohs is a type of procedure where a doctor will keep cutting into tissue and keep bringing it out until there's no cancer found. So that type of description would be found in there to help verify with the users, and so it will help with clarification if maybe somebody's like, well, do they actually do this? They can go on here, read our description of bone, and be like, okay, no, we can use that. That's what we want them to do. Finally, this is the slide where the video of the project is going to be located. It will be on YouTube, as well as this video will be on YouTube. However, I will include them both in the final submission. So in case I make my channel private, when you need to view this will also be available in the submission just natively.